Hi, welcome and welcome back. Today, I want to talk about how you should design everything in your life. And I'm going to give you the 7 secret tips to successfully building a life or rebuilding a life that you absolutely love and you never feel stuck again. So I've had 25 years of being a designer, working with top Fortune 500 companies, and helping projects get off the ground. I have studied energy healing, and I understand that in between of creating deadlines and then being able to always have this inspirational spark come up within you. The difference is the comparison of what I was doing to what I had been trained to do, plus this little, element of energetics. I realized that you could design anything in your life, you can make things happen, but there were a few things that I needed to understand before I was able to do that work. And so I want to give you 7 secrets that will help you transform your life into something that you love with these mindset shifts. So, however you approach it, I want you to take these and think about them as you apply them to your life, as you start to think about ways in which you want to just rebrand, revamp, update, and do things that are closer to what it is that you love. And these also help you to never feel stuck again. The first secret that I want to tell you about today is that you change your goals into standards. You no longer have big goals that you put your work on. And we have goals, but we don't make them the priority. Instead, we look at what is this goal that I want and how can I make a standard in my lifestyle to achieve that goal? So instead, we want to convert a goal into a standard. So let me give you an example of weight loss. We all know we need to lose a little extra weight. Sometimes we need to put a little extra weight on. And we might have this number in our head that we want to hit. And when we hit that goal, if we hit that goal, when we hit that goal, we're then faced with another task of maintaining. And so what starts to happen is that you realize that if you just had a standard of I'm a healthy person and I make healthy choices in my life, then maybe that goal could far surpass what you originally had. And on the days that you may miss a day or you don't quite hit that very specific, tight process that you've put yourself on, you then allow yourself to say, this is my standard of living. And there are days that I can be active and there are days that I rest, but my vision is still the same. I'm still building a standard of my lifestyle to live. And if we can apply this within any aspect of our life, of if I am going to start embodying and being someone instead of having only goals, and we do want to have goals, we want to have benchmarks and ways that we can measure, but that can't be the priority. It's really about the standard of how we are, who we are, and how we show up every single time, every single day, every single moment. So it becomes a choice. So this was a key secret for me. This was a really important understanding. Once I started to shift that, it made it easier to make lots of choices that aligned with that standard and that lifestyle that I wanted than just to hit a narrow specific goal. A lot of times when we feel stuck, it's because we've been doing the same things over and over again. We know this, it's routine. Sometimes, even if things are working, we might get a little bored and stale. And so, this is how we can really look at if the goal has superseded or is no longer interesting, but I have this new perspective of a standard of a lifestyle that I want to have, then I have more room to change it up. I have more freedom to open up and expand. Second secret that I really, really love is having a bird's eye view. Now, this is really important in any aspect of your life, especially in really intense situations or places where you feel like you're stuck. This perspective that you have in the very thick material world is sometimes difficult to get out of. But if we're able to zoom out, if we're able to really get a bird's eye perspective, not just on one area of our life, but all areas of our life and take a step back, then we can actually get a true picture of what's going on. And so sometimes that's a little hard to ask for. Sometimes it is hard to see that full picture and what's going on in our lives, especially if we're not in a place that we truly love. But the honesty that we get from being able to shift that perspective, to move up to a higher level, if you want to even go more spiritual, this is like really being in that higher self perspective. And then we can start to see how everything's interconnected, how I'm the center of my world, not self-centered, but the center of my own personal world between my career, my finances, my love, my relationships, my spirituality, my education, my health. And so I can see the areas where maybe things are working in some areas and things aren't working in other areas. This gives me an opportunity to then compare. Well, if this is working really well and I've figured this out, then this is just a matter of time over here for me to figure out. And so I can start to get a perspective of what's the bigger picture. To be able to take that perspective and know this is just a moment, I'm just going to live through this and move forward with it, I can make better choices than if I'm too emotionally in the whirlwind, in the soup, in the waves of emotions that come through, and not being able to really stay grounded and keep my perspective. And so this is important when we're looking at how do we redesign our life if we're emotionally attached to the situation that we're in, but we don't like it. And if we're emotionally invested in something, even though it may not be the best thing for us, we do have to take that perspective and look at it from a bigger picture, from a life picture. And so this is a really great way to understand how do all of these connect and where do I want to see myself moving forward and how do I set myself up today to embody that. So if I have these standards about how I want to live my life and I now can get a bird's eye view, we can start to see how we're building on these little key mind shifts, these little secret pieces that we can just turn the wheel for us so that we're moving in the direction that we want. Secret number 3, challenges give you wisdom. So life is always going to throw challenges at you, and it's needed for your growth. It's needed for all of us so that we can develop into a better human. When we fall, the story begins the moment we hit the floor. It's not only important how we got there, but how we feel in that moment. And more importantly, what are we going to do next? How are we going to get up and keep going? This is the beginning. When you hit the bottom, when you hit your peak, when you hit that breaking point, that's when the story begins of you going from an ordinary person into transforming into your hero. And so this key piece is so that you can take a co-creative position and design what it is that you want to do in life. So the challenges that are coming up for you, you're actually excited about, which sounds kind of crazy because you're doing things that you really love. You're doing things that you might feel have a purpose, a meaning just for you. And so when you're pushing through the struggle, the even just the idea of or even just the notion that you're starting in a beginner level at something and you're working your way up to become an expert, right? The growing pains of just learning something new, you're way more invested in it because it is rooted in something that you desire, something that you love, as opposed to life just happening and throwing you things that you don't really love. And so, of course, that's life. Like, of course, we're going to have to deal with things that we don't want to do. And we're going to have to figure out how to do things we don't love. But if we can have a majority of the things that are presented to us in our lives that do present some idea of an obstacle, we're going to have a lot more success in actually moving through that obstacle because we can see the bigger picture behind it. We can see the path and the road that we want to take. And so these little obstacles, these speed bumps, these boulders that get in the way, we're going to have a much better perspective, a different approach to figuring out how to solve and move around it or move through it or take another route, but you still keep your sense of your vision. And so if we can start to have a life that we're designing, then everything now just feels like purpose and meaning. And we get a bigger sense of the wisdom that we get from the growth of the challenges that we're facing, because it all feels and is in alignment with what it is that you're wanting to do. Because your mental landscape is in alignment, your vision, your notions, your understanding, your purpose in the world is in alignment with your heart and your desire and your souls. So we've got this perfect vertical alignment and we can move forward. And so knowing that challenges give us wisdom, and it is only through the challenges, or mostly through the challenges, that we can compare to the good times and we can excavate out, that gives us so much rich meaning and context for creativity in our lives. Ironic as it sounds, right? We have to face things, we have to live things, we have to live through things. all the good and all the bad and come out the victor, come out the winner, come out the hero, and talk about the transformation that happened in the process. But we have to be able to open up and allow ourselves to transform. And why not have a hand in designing that and putting that into your life? Secret number 4 to designing your life. Wealth is more important than being rich. Now, being rich is fun, but it can be very empty and it can be very isolating. And so, if we can really understand the meaning of wealth and look to embody the meaning of wealth and the essence of wealth, the frequency of wealth, the frequency of abundance within us and that beingness, so that when I wake up in the morning, I can be grateful for everything that I have, the pillow, the bed, the roof. I can be happy for the clothes on my back. I can be happy and grateful and feel the abundance of the food in my fridge and the things I have accessible to me. Then start to build a different sort of wealth. And then I can start to look at my health and the ways in which I make sure that I'm staying healthy adds to the abundance. And then I can look at my relationships and I can look at my career and I can look at these areas of my life and I can start to see, even if it's not exactly the way that I want it, I can start to see the wealth and the abundance. And so the money then becomes a byproduct of what it is that we're doing. The money is just an energetic currency. And so if we can expand the idea of what it means to be wealthy and feel that sense of wealth and add that to the standards in that we're living and look at our life in a higher perspective and then start to see even the challenges have wisdom, which is huge wealth behind it. Everything starts to shift into this more abundant frequency of something that we love. We're now changing the lens of our eyes so that we're looking at our life in a way through the lens of love. I love myself so much. I want to build and design a life that I'm going to love walking in every step of the way. And no matter what gets thrown my way, I have all of the tools inside of me, all of these little secrets to help make sure that I can always bounce back into alignment. I can bounce back, I can get back up, and I stay the hero and transform as many times as I want in my life story. So that brings us to secret number 5. You always hold the compass internally of what it is that you should be doing. It is great to ask for support and help, but you are getting someone else's perspective, someone else's projections about the way they think you should be living or their context of how life should be led. And they're also projecting any insecurities or fears that they might have doing the things that you want to do. And so you need to keep that in mind as you're asking for support and who you're asking it from, getting the right mentors that have gone through the things that you are about to step into. But at the end of the day, no matter what the information is or the words of wisdom are, you still have to sleep with yourself at night and be with yourself on the decisions that you make. You're with you 100% of the time. And so you are going to be the best indicator and the best compass to know where to go. Now, by following your compass, that doesn't mean that we're not going to have challenges, issues, obstacles, and things and lessons we have to learn, because that's just life and that's just how this game of life works. But if we can hone into this compass within us, if we can get into a space where we know how to listen to that intuition always, and sometimes we follow it, sometimes we don't. I've been there, but that is the goal. Even when it feels like it's not working, it's always working. I've had this happen so many times where I follow something. It didn't really make sense at the time. I'm not sure why I did it, but it was just what I felt. And it ended up down the line being something that made a lot more sense and dots were connected. But sometimes in the moment, we're just not going to know why these things come over us. And so the other part to that is not only that you hold the compass, but that your energy is your indicator. And so energy is really an elusive type of word. Energy can mean lots of different things. We're energetic beings. We have these electromagnetic pulses that come out of us. We read our frequencies and our vibes, but our energy really is the state of being. And it's that core essence of who we are, who we believe to be, and how we're connected. And so we have many thoughts that go through our mind, and we have many emotions that go through our body. When we can hold that essence of ourselves, when we can articulate what's happening within us, what our intuition is saying compared to our inner critic, what our emotions are going through as just opposed to the state of being. And really, you could kind of think of this as your energy is your indicator, and look at in your most neutral state when maybe nothing's really going on. It might be a quiet morning, it might be a quiet afternoon. Read your energetic state. Really pay attention to what's happening. Can you stay in peace when you're in quiet? Is there always like a wrestling that's happening? Or are you always in a high vibe, right? What is your natural state? And so when things come into play, like relationships, life, things come in, you now have an indicator of, well, this is how I am normally on a regular, sunny day. And this is what happens when someone else comes in, and you can feel the difference in energy. You can feel the difference in emotions when you walk into a room and the vibration of it, knowing your own energetic signature so that when something comes in or drama comes in, you don't get swept up in it because you can see that as another energetic frequency, another emotional wave coming through that you don't have to play into because you're solid in your own compass, and your compass will probably tell you to back up or to turn or help or whatever, but you can see the difference between where you're at and someone else's. When we can figure out this indicator, when we can figure out what our own natural energetic footprint is, our own signature print, it then becomes a lot easier when we fall off, when we shift, when things catch us, when things catch us off guard, that we can get back into that place because we know it, because it's us, because it's our own deep signature. And so we never have to feel stuck. And if we feel stuck, we feel that stuck energy, we move, we make things happen. It's a sign that we need to be more, we need to be more, we need to be in motion when we're stuck. We need to move the energy through the body. It's a lot different, right? Stuck is like non-moving. It's literally stuck, as opposed to things that are in flow, which are in motion. So if you really do feel stuck and your energy is telling you, I'm stuck and I don't know how to get out of it, it's to figure out ways in which you can move the energy within you through excitement. Secret number 6, everything happens in seasons. Nature has its own seasons. Humans have their own seasons. Cultures themselves have their own seasons, like holidays, things that we celebrate and traditions that we have. Wintertime, we're indoors more, summer, or want to be more active. When we're designing our life, we have to take into account that we have seasons. And there are some seasons where we're super motivated and we want to create and we want to do a lot. And there are other seasons, not as much. So if we've set our sights and a vision on doing something that happens to be in the wrong season for us, we may feel like a failure because we didn't successfully do that. And so we want to be able to look at, where am I the most at in any place in time? When we're looking at setting up these new standards and looking at everything in our life, we want to take into account where our natural cycle tends to lead us, and to honor that. If we're really ambitious and we have a lot of things that we want to accomplish, but it just happens to be in a time where our bodies naturally want to sleep a little bit more or need a little bit longer rest. And if we don't understand that about ourselves, we're going to have an internal conflict. We're going to have an internal battle because our mind has said, you must be doing X, Y, Z 3, 4 times a day times 20 weeks. And if you don't do this, you're a failure. And your body might be saying, I need a nap between thing 3 and thing 4 every day. And I need to sleep a little bit extra in the morning. So that thing 1 that you wanted me to do, we're probably not going to get to it until a little bit later. And if we can be accepting with the natural cadence of our body while still pushing ourselves a little bit, we want to, always kind of find that edge that makes us feel a little bit more. Then we're in a much better place. And so that again is us reading our energy in the proper way so that we're making sure that we're listening. We're listening to our bodies, especially if we think we need to push, 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 when in fact we need to rest, rest, rest. This is that piece of burnout. This is knowing that I can't have a full plate right now. In fact, I only need half a plate. This is all I can take. And I can do this half plate really, really well. But if I take on any more than that, it's not going to be up to my standards, because I can see the bigger picture. But in my next cycle, I'm going to have a ton of energy and I can take a full plate and maybe another half. So if we're really just paying attention to how we move throughout the year, how we move in our seasons, we're going to set ourselves up to make everything that we want, every desire that we have, an actual reality. That's the goal of all of this, is that these desires and these things that we want, that it's coming from a place that is intrinsic to us, that is authentic to us. No comparing, it's just for us. We're in our own lane, carving out our own life in our own way. And so we have to respect our body and our energy when it's saying slow down. And I found the most prolific ideas I've ever gotten was when I was in deep rest and relaxation and I didn't have a care in the world. Think laying on a beach, right? Well, imagine when we go on vacation, like we're going to go to some tropical island and we're just going to lay down and rest. And so it's really us saying we need to rejuvenate. And so I really like to push the idea of rest because I think we underrate it. And even if you do sleep every night, which you have to, you may not even get the best rest because we have to know how to shut down the mind. We have to know how to relax the body. We need to know how to balance the nervous system. And sleep does that for the most part, but we need to pay attention to those signs in our waking life so that we know in our waking day what season we're in. So take note on what season we're in right now and align that to what it is that you're trying to accomplish and see how they match. Secret number 7 is really about designing your own system. You're the best person to design your life and to design your own system. It's the most epic time right now to build a life and however you see fit. And a lot of times we're taking from the old paradigm, the old ways of thinking, the old ways in which everything was supposed to unfold. And we're leveraging that to build a new path. And that's not the case. That's really not how this is going to work as we're moving into these new eras and these new generations. And the fact that you get to decide so much, if not every single element of your path, kind of forget that we make these choices every single day. We make these choices every single moment, how we want to show up. And so when we're thinking about rebuilding and redesigning our lives and rebranding ourselves and what does that all look like and setting all these goals and these visions, if you want to change your life, you can do it right now with me in this moment today, just by believing in and knowing that what it is that you want, you already have, that you're embodying that you have this deep sense of belief and this being in exactly knowing who you are and what it is that you want to do in this world, in this life, with high standards, with a great perspective, knowing that challenges that you face will bring you wisdom, knowing what your energy is about, knowing your inner compass, knowing what your seasons are. Like all of this stems from this deep, deep knowing of yourself. Designing your life, designing everything within it, designing your creativity, design everything. Design everything. You are a co-creator. Design everything in your life and only put in those pieces that you absolutely love. There is no room for anything else. Allow everything else to move away, and you're going to have an existence that you love. I have 2 courses coming up. One is going to be a self-led course on designing everything, designing your life in depth. That'll be available. There'll be a link below if you want to sign up, get in on it. And I like to offer discounts right before as a pre-sale, so you can be notified when that's happening. And then I have a second program coming up called Sparked. And this is where I really want to walk with you on this process of how to reignite that creative spark within you and how to keep that open. I've worked in such intense creative positions in my life that we had to create on demand with looming deadlines, pushing, 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 pushing. And I loved creating, so I always had way too many projects going on. And then I would completely burn out, and then I would replenish just enough to get back in. And so I found that over the years, as I've been really articulating this for myself, and a lot of this work stems from this blend between the spirituality that you hold within you and your creativity is intertwined. It is that essence of life that we can absorb, that we can experience, contemplate, and reflect on, that we then get to express in the creative work, that we get to express in our creative lives, that we get to express just as being human. And so I find that it's really easy for us to burn out, and we kind of forget sometimes how to turn it on if it's been a little too long or we felt a little stuck or stale. And it happens. It happens. And that's, again, how do we know our seasons? How are we setting ourselves up and allowing for that rest, allowing for the next big idea to come through? Thank you all for being here. I love you all. I can't wait to share more of the series with you. And we'll see you in the next time. Take care. Thanks.